one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
for all.
Okay, moving forward to the appointment of a temporary chairperson of the meeting. Mr. Bill Metz will be the chairperson for this evening. Turn the meeting over to Ms. Turnbull. Mr. Metz?
Mr. Metz, are you there? President Fisher, would you like me to assist?
Yes, please.
Okay. Unless are there objections from the board with me assisting in the role of the temporary chairperson?
Not at all.
No objections.
No.
More appropriate,
Thank you.
actually.
All right, hearing none, then let's, is there a motion to open the nominations for the position of the president of the Ambridge Area School Board for the 2021 term?
I
So,
nominate Kathy Fisher.
I second that nomination.
Fantastic. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to close nominations?
so moved.
I think that's a motion to close. Is there a second to the motion to close nominations?
Second,
All right, there's a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Opposed? All right, so we have one candidate and one nominee for the position of school board president. That is Kathy Fisher. Is there a motion to appoint Kathy Fisher as the president of the Ambridge Area School Board of Directors for the term 2021?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Angus, I will give that to you. Is there a second?
second,
All those in favor, please say
Aye.
I,
any opposed? All right, the motion passes. President Fisher, congratulations for another term.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
All right, and so I'm going to have my assistant solicitor here with me on my lap. I'll work from home. All right. Are there any nominations for the election of the vice president of the Ambridge Area Board of Directors? Are there any names being brought forward at this time?
I would like to nominate Scott Angus.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Angus is on the slate of candidates. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations for the position of vice president of the Ambridge Area Board of Directors?
So moved.
All right, motion, is there a second?
second,
All right, it's motioned and seconded. All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, nominations are now closed. We have one nominee for the position of vice president. That is Mr. Angus for the term 2021. Is there a motion for his election?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Angus. You have been elected for another term of vice president of the Board of School Directors, vice president. So congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Angus.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
So as a final matter, it is time for the consideration of the election of the treasurer for the Board of Directors. Are there any nominees to be made?
I would like to nominate Mary Jo Kehoe for treasurer.
I'll second.
This motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations for the position of treasurer? You're waiting, thank you. Hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations for the position of treasurer of the Ambridge Area Board of Directors for the 2021 term?
So moved.
Mr. Angus has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The slate of candidates is as limited to Mrs. Kehoe. Is there a motion for the election of Mrs. Kehoe as the treasurer of the Ambridge Area Board of Directors for the 2021 term?
So motion. Or so
Motion made.
moved, sorry.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mrs. Manganello. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion is unanimous. Congratulations to Mrs. Kehoe, the treasurer of the Ambridge Area Board of Directors for the 2021 term. And with that, I happily will mute and put my baby away, and I turn this back over to Mrs. Fisher. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Turnbull. Thank you for your child assisting this evening. Mr. Metz is cutting in and out in case you don't see him on here. He was having some technical difficulties that they're working on. So thank you for that. We'll move forward to scheduled times and places for the regular monthly meetings of the Board of Education according to School Code Section 421 and the meet and discuss meetings. The following meeting dates are proposed for January 2021 through November 2021. June, can you move the agenda up just so the attendees can see? Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve and advertise the dates?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Angus,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Manganello,
Yes.
Mr. Metz. I have Keith helping me try to get Mr. Metz in.
Thank you. You know what? I could try to call him on the, let me try to get him on the phone for that so he can give you an answer on the dates.
I see him trying to get in now. Let's see if it works.
Hey, Bill, I have you on speaker. Are you able to see the agenda? I pulled up the dates for the monthly meetings and we have a motion. We're voting on the meeting dates. Okay, are you back on? Okay, so you're able to see and where you're at your name to approve and for advertisement. All right, go ahead, June.
Okay, Mr. Metz,
Yes.
Miss Pedigo,
Yes.
Miss Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Meet and discuss meetings are scheduled for the second Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. and regular board meetings are scheduled the third Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. unless otherwise changed by approval of the board. The reorganization meeting will be held the first week of December 2021. All meetings will be held in the high school media center. Moving forward to the appointment of board and committee representatives. The first committee is Education and Technology, and I would like Mrs. Manganello to serve. Finance and Budget, Ms. Pedigo. Building and Grounds, Mr. Angus. Athletics, Mr. Campbell. Public Relations, Mr. Metz. Steering and Rules, Ms. Kehoe. Legislative, Ms. Young. Salary Schedule and Labor Relations, Mrs. Curtis, and Personnel, Mr. Angus. Moving forward to the appointment of committee representatives. Beaver Valley Joint School Committee. I'll just open this and ask, is there anyone on the board willing to serve in these positions?
I'll be happy to do the joint school committee.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. And if we don't have a second representative tonight, we can revisit next week. And we can get more information to the board as far as to that, what that entails if nobody else is interested in stepping up. Okay, so it is recommended that Mr. Angus will be appointed as a representative. We'll discuss an alternate representative next week.
Yes, if I could have more information as to what that
Sure.
representative, I would actually be interested in possibly being the alternative.
Okay, very good, Ms. Young. We will get information to you this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward to the Beaver County Career and Technology Citizens Advisory Board. It is recommended to appoint Mrs. Kehoe as the representative and Mr. Angus as the alternate representative to serve a one-year term, 2021, in the Beaver County Career and Technology Citizens Advisory Committee. Do we have any questions there? Any input?
And I think we should take that to a vote, President Fisher, if that's.
Very good. June, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Angus,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Manganello,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Petigo,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Moving forward to the reorganization ballot, it is recommended to approve the 2020 ballots be cast for the 2021-22 officers of the Beaver Valley Joint School Board, the Beaver Valley Joint School Committee, and the Beaver County Career and Technology Center Joint School Board. The term of office for this reorganization, a one-year term beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending June 30th, 2022. Ms. Turnbull, as far as the Beaver Valley Joint School Committee, would we just hold off and vote on that next week?
I think that would be appropriate, and then you could just take one action for
Okay.
those matters.
Okay, very good. Do I need a roll call, or can we do for the reorganization ballot?
I think that's a matter of the prerogative of the board. However you'd like to call for that action item is fine.
Okay, and then I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Angus,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Manganello,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Petigo,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. Moving forward to the Laughlin Memorial Free Library representative. It is recommended, Mr. Angus, are you still willing to serve in that role?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And is there anyone else that would possibly like to serve as well, along with Mr. Angus? Looking for our Ambridge Library. And those meetings are how often, Mr. Angus, just to let the give the board a little information?
At most once a month.
At most once a month.
Yeah, it's the third Thursday, I believe it is, at 6 o'clock, and probably 3 months out of the year, we don't have a meeting at all.
Okay. Anybody at all, or?
Kathy, I'd like to do that.
Thank you, Mrs. Curtis. Put you in there. Okay. It is recommended that Scott Angus and Kitty Curtis be appointed to serve as Ambridge Area School Board representatives for the Laughlin Memorial Library for the 2021 term. Can I have a roll call, please, June?
Mr. Angus,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Manganello,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Petigo,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. Moving forward to the Bade Memorial Library appointment. Ms. Petigo, you have currently been serving there. Are you still interested in serving?
I am. I just want to make sure I open it up to my fellow directors. I do not live in Baden. And so I know last year, one of the reasons why I wanted to do that is because we didn't have representative on the board from Baden. So is there anyone that would be interested in representing the school board in their community if they live in Baden? I lived in Ambridge then, and now I live in Harmony Township.
I live in Baden, but if you want to do it, Valerie, I'm fine with you doing it. But
Either way, I think it's
don't know
appropriate.
how it works, but I live in Baden. I'll gladly do it if you want a resident from Baden to represent.
Yeah, I just thought that that's appropriate. I don't know,
Okay.
Mr. President. Either way,
Sure.
I'm happy
That's-
to.
It's fine with me. You girls.
How often, like, what is it? I don't know what any of these appointments really are, so apologize.
So it's a non-voting member of the library board. They meet once a month, 7 o'clock. Yesterday it was, so the first Tuesday, second Tuesday.
I can do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Manganello. It is recommended that Mrs. Denise Manganello be appointed to the Bain Memorial Library Board of Directors for the 2021 term. Can I have a roll call, please, June?
Mr. Angus,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
yes,
Mrs. Manganello,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
Yes.
Miss Pedigo,
Yes.
Miss Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. And I would just like to thank Ms. Pedigo for serving in that role this past year, and stepping up and taking that on, even though she wasn't a resident of Baden. Thank you for doing that, Ms. Pedigo.
Of course. It's a pleasure.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to adjourn.
so moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving forward to the Meet and Discuss Board meeting. The Meet and Discuss Board meeting of the Ambridge Area School District is held on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. This meeting is being held to go over the agenda for the regular monthly board meeting that will be held on Wednesday, December 16th, 2020 at 7 p.m. virtually. This meeting is being recorded for district purposes. It is or may be published in part or in its entirety on the district's website without the express permission of meeting participants. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Angus,
Here.
Mr. Campbell,
Here.
Mrs. Curtis,
Here.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Here,
Mrs. Manganello,
Here.
Mr. Metz,
Here.
Miss Pedigo,
here.
Miss Young,
Here.
Mrs. Fisher,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Do we have any correspondence this evening?
Yes, I received public comment, which was circulated to the board, and I will summarize those comments. The first comment is from Justin Buchanan from Economy Borough. Mr. Buchanan is reaching out to express his concerns over the decision to cancel winter sports. He is concerned about the well-being and mental state of kids that play these sports. He was advised that only Ambridge, Beaver, and Hopewell were considering the cancellation of their winter sports. He feels that kids can play safe without an audience, and he feels if indoor fall sports were played successfully, the same procedures and safety protocols can be applied to winter sports. Do you want me to read the next comment, or do we want to
Please.
stop? The next one is from Eric Astorino, the high school boys basketball coach. A few points of Mr. Astorino's comment. These last few weeks have been extremely tough on some of our boys. By not having the stability of daily basketball practice has caused situations in some of their homes to be more difficult during this time. While I understand the reasoning for the postponement of winter sports, I feel our team needs to be back together on the court. As the COVID number continue to fluctuate, student athletes continue to be one of the least likely groups to contact the virus. Also, if we continue with the postponement of our season, 2 of our seniors have the chance to miss out on a variety of college opportunities. As for the current season, our first opportunity to play a game will be after Christmas. We need 15 practices before the possibility of a real game as per the WIPIAL. We had 60 open gym practices and not one case of COVID. Should I move forward with the next comment, or do we want to stop there?
You know what, we can stop there because those were both related. Dr. Pascarella, do you have anything you want to jump in there?
My only, excuse me, my only comment is I'd like to thank both of the individuals for their comments and know that this is a really, difficult time. At this given point, I know it may be a discussion later on in our meeting if the board chooses to discuss that. My recommendation right now is concurrent with that of PDE, and it's not because I don't want to see our seniors or any of our student athletes miss out on the opportunity to play athletics, because, or for that matter, any arts or extracurriculars. I think those are a very important part to our students every day, both on and off the field, court, stage, etc. Musical instruments, use of art, clubs they're interested in, all very important. But right now, I think, when you have people recommending that we don't have this due to being able to keep everybody safe, that's why, right now I continue to stick with the recommendation or concur with the recommendation of PD. But I really do, feel bad about this, and I'm hopeful that, maybe there'd be some way when things are safe that we could figure out a way to have some type of season. But obviously that's a decision that would need to be made. So that's what I have to say. But my heart reaches out to all the students, both student athletes and, as I said, those that are involved in arts and music, and just kids who like to come to school. This is very difficult on all of us. So I do feel bad for that. Thank you.
Thank you. June, do we have some more comments?
I have one more comment from Jeremiah Jordani. He's a student at the high school. Mr. Jordani and the mock trial team is respectfully petitioning the board to support the purchase of webcams for the mock trial team to portray the team's professionalism in the new online format. This is a crucial element to displaying professionalism and a clear picture of participants during a competition. Mr. Jordani thanks the board for their consideration. And that's all I have.
My only comment to that, Mrs. Fisher, this is I just kind of became aware of this, later today, early this evening. So I did ask, the technology director, Mrs. Heim, to reach. I know, most of us do have cameras, whether that's on iPads or laptops that students would have. So to the degree to what they need to do, I ask that, that individual reach out to Mrs. Heim and they communicate the needs to try to see if our current technology could fulfill that, or if we do need to look into something else and get back to me. We definitely want to make sure that our students, like everyone else, are able to participate in the virtual event. It's very important if they can do that we do so in the most appropriate, cost-effective way that we can. So hopefully they'll have a conversation and try to work through that. And if something needs to come to the board, we'd bring that up at that point.
Okay. Thank you. If Mrs. Heim could update us along with you, the rest of the board, when she does gather that information, just so that we can let Jeremiah know. I know you said that, but if we could just get the update as well on if there would be a cost at all, please.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time, Ms. Fisher?
If we could just get the update, if you wouldn't mind, when Mrs. Heim gives you an update.
Yes.
Just so we are aware. Oh, thank you. And there's nothing else, correct, June?
No, there's nothing else.
All right, thank you. Moving forward, we do not have any student teacher recognition this evening. Presentations, Dr. Pasquarello is going to update us on the reopening committee.
Thank you, June. Thank you for pulling that up. So for the Board of Education and Public, as we had discussed at our previous meeting, our reopening committee, again, you'll see the full committee met on 12/8/2020, and the breakout committee of K-2 was held on 12/3 to get feedback from that stakeholder group about engagement and some other things that we found out from our survey. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. In the K-2, the teachers, couple findings and next steps to try to increase engagement and help our students in these difficult times. The teachers will work to provide breakout rooms for small group instruction, remediation, and enrichment as appropriate. Obviously, this would not replace the general instruction that the kids get, but there would be some breakout sessions throughout the day. And they've already, I believe, in many cases, started to talk to each other and talk to tech integrators about how we can do this in the most effective way. So if you grades, you should be seeing that, as well as maybe some other grades who teachers have taken this opportunity to do some breakout rooms. Also, in addition to that, teachers will look for opportunities throughout the school day to allow for social interaction and appropriate brain breaks. That was another thing happening. When I was getting some feedback from some of the teachers and even some parents and such that we've heard from, they are seeing these types of brain breaks occurring, allowing for some of that social interaction. Obviously, we want to be mindful of this. We want to allow kids to be able to interact with each other. It's very, very important to their well-being. We know that this is an area that, you know, we can continue to improve upon, and the K-2 teachers are already beginning to step up and work on that. I think it is happening throughout the district. I say K-2 just simply because at the direction of the board, based upon the survey, that was the first group of teachers we met with. But I have gotten some feedback across the district where we are using some breakout teams and looking at some social interaction and trying to give the kids opportunities to have some brain breaks. And I think as this continues and to share with teachers, it'll just get stronger and stronger in what they're doing, and hopefully help our students to have those most needed breaks throughout the day and get that social interaction so that when they do deliver that instruction, you know, they're prepared and ready and feel engaged. And it's a challenging time. So I really want to thank our teachers, and I also want to thank our parents and students. I know this is a difficult time for everybody. So your patience, your willingness to work together and help each other out, I can't say it enough. Next slide, please. So we had the full reopening committee on 12/8, as it said. Every committee member voted, and that is right now to stay in accordance with the recommendation of PDE to remain full virtual right now. We get updates from the state. Currently, the county is insubstantial. PDE recommends that until we have 2 consecutive weeks of moderate, we would remain virtual. That's the recommendation. However, you know, there is decisions that need to be made by a board, obviously, if you do not concur with this. So we will again be setting up another subgroup that came out of our meeting yesterday. And this will be for the teachers in grades 3 to 5 to address similar issues about engagement and social interaction as the K-2 committee. So we'll have that in the next upcoming weeks. And we will then also have a full reopening committee again prior to the January board meeting. But at this point, our committee was unanimous in sticking with the recommendations from PDE to remain virtual at this given point. Are there questions from the board on this update? Okay, well, thank you. And we will hold these meetings in the couple of weeks. Mr. King will be scheduling that with the 3 to 5 teachers, and obviously the whole reopening committee again before we meet again in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pasquarello. Public comment regarding agenda items only. In light of the state declared disaster emergency, the board has adopted modified public meeting public comment processes consistent with the Sunshine Law. These modified rules have been published in a newspaper of general circulation and on the district's website. Public comment will only be taken in written formats via email in advance of the meeting. Public comments received in advance will be circulated to the board. All public comments regarding agenda items will be read during the meeting. All other comments will be summarized during the meeting. All comments must include the resident property owner's name and address. And June has read that correspondence for us. Moving forward to the committee reports, education and technology, Mrs. Manganello.
Nothing to report at this time, Ms. President.
Thank you. Finance and budget, Ms. Pedigo.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. President. We have 5 items to discuss this evening. The first 2 items are the monthly bills and salaries for both the school district and the cafeteria. Any discussion? Okay. Item number 3 is grant acceptance. It's recommended to accept the Safe Schools targeted 2-year school resource officer grant in the amount of $60,000 that will be used to offset the cost of the school resource officer at the middle school. Mr. Barry King and Mrs. Rebecca DeMays were instrumental in securing this grant. Any discussion? Okay, great job to Mr. King and Ms. DeMays. Number 4 is also a grant acceptance. It's recommended to accept the Safe Schools Initiative Competitive Targeted Equipment Grant in the amount of $24,960 to be used to purchase and install cameras at Highland Elementary School. Mrs. Lori Heim was instrumental in securing this grant. Any discussion?
Mrs. Pedigo, I just, again, wanted to thank Mr. King, Mr. Mays, and Mrs. Heim for their work in helping us complete that grant and securing those funds. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate
Yeah, very nice job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Heim. Great. The final item is a repository. It's recommended that the board approves the sale of property from the Beaver County Repository of Unsold Property for the following properties. 3 lots, all on Anthony Wayne Drive in Harmony Township. And you can see it's parcels 620, 621, and 623, each in the amount of $1,808 to Susan Palladino. Any discussion? Okay, and that's all for discussion this evening, Mrs. President.
Thank you, Ms. Pedigo.
Thank you.
Moving forward to building and grounds, Mr. Angus.
There are no items for discussion this evening.
Thank you. Athletics, Mr. Campbell.
Well, there are no items to discuss, but are we discussing something at this
Yes.
point?
Yes, I think it would be appropriate for the board to have discussion here. First, let me ask Addie to try. Addie, are you on this evening? Mrs. Lucatordo?
Yes, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Can you give us a little update on athletics as far as, from your meetings?
Yesterday, there was a meeting of the MAC athletic directors and principals. That's our largest conference we belong to. In that meeting, the principals voted to not hold any of the MAC championships, and the MAC hosts championships in the wintertime in wrestling, swimming and diving, and bowling. So that happened yesterday. This morning, the MAC athletic directors met and had discussion over multiple events, shared information on what's going on in most of our schools. A lot of us are waiting for meetings, and it's very fluid. Then this afternoon, the PIAA had a meeting of their board, and they released some findings. They were requested to consider delay of the winter season, and they declined to do that. So there's some housekeeping issues with the PIAA. They made some changes to some of their bylaws to allow folks to maybe play a longer season, to not have to play the minimum number of games, things to do with the basketball championship, but no real large changes from the PIAA. I can take any questions that you have.
But WPIAL, do we have any information?
The WPIAL, they basically work for the PIAA.
Right. Have they given any feedback or indication as concern or?
They have a meeting tomorrow, I think, to follow up. And Amy Schuneman, who's the executive director of the PIAA, was the one that gave us the information today via email around 3:45. And they want to continue as scheduled. That's what they've said. They did do another survey of the athletic directors and principals, and I completed that survey yesterday about 10 in the morning.
Okay. Addie, do you have any idea on just as far as like in our conference for basketball, so to speak, do we know if people are holding practices, and are they anticipating starting their seasons?
Two of our, one other school in our section for boys and girls basketball, Hopewell, is currently on hold. There's some other schools, Beaver Falls, for example, is on hold with everything as well. They just went on hold. They meet again next week, the board does.
Okay.
There are some schools like Avonworth who is practicing but not playing currently. And my email is full every day of schools trying to find games. So I think I hear more of people who are playing right now because they're looking for events than the people who are not playing. I did a report to the board, and at different points, I've thought that about 20% are where we are, about 20% are practicing but not playing games, and probably about 60% are full go, depending on how their schooling is going. A note, Pittsburgh City Schools has delayed. They're not part of the WPIAL, but they are in our area. They are currently on hold till January 4.
I did read that online.
Yeah.
You know, so their season will be on hold, but are they holding practices?
No, they're not holding practices. They're
Okay.
done. They're
Okay.
holding right now. The complication, there's a couple complications, and they dealt with some of this in the PIAA today. We're required to have 15 practices prior to our first varsity game. A scrimmage can happen earlier. And the other thing too, with that 15-day period is you have to have 1 day off every 6 days. So at this point, if you would say practice tomorrow, our first game couldn't be till like the 28th. So it's like an 18-day window. Middle school, the requirement is you practice 5 days. And middle school generally does not practice over the weekends. So it would maybe take a little longer to get there. The other thing is that we would have to comply with the capacity, the new capacity things that came out. I gave that information to the board as well. And we would be at 10% capacity. The other things people have discussed is whether or not they're going to use locker rooms. They've discussed mask wearing. That's the biggest issue right now. Is there are some schools that are saying, making the statement that they're going to insist their student athletes wear masks during competition, like all the time. No, we're taking the mask off to play. And they're going to require schools that come to play them wear their mask as well. And so if you disagree on mask wearing, that's not a forfeit, it's a no contest. So there may be some schools that do that. The other issue we're going to have is that there are a lot of schools, like Quaker Valley's gym is very small. A lot of middle school gyms are very small. So we've heard from example from Newcastle who's saying that you can't, the 7th graders won't be able to be in the building while the 8th graders play, for example. And so, it's going to be January or February. We can't leave 7th graders sitting on a bus. So we'd have to incur extra maybe transportation costs by taking 2 buses to maybe some of our away games. So it's really complicated. It's not clear. And the one thing it is clear is virtually no one's allowing visiting fans at this time because we're fortunate that our facilities are as large as they are and our numbers are would allow possibly to have some folks in the building. Other people aren't as able to do that.
Addie, Chuck Campbell, question. Am I correct in understanding that it's only Ambridge and Hopewell at this current time in our section not practicing?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. And we did have a section meeting. We had it prior to Thanksgiving and we went over a lot of things then. But some of them are, we'd have to revisit again. We had a meeting on 11/16. And so some of those things are thrown out the window and we've got to redo. Don Short he's the athletic director at Hopewell, was in both of the meetings that I was in. And he is not really seeing a movement at Hopewell as well. And somebody else might know more about Hopewell than I do, but that's what he's saying.
Are there any of the schools in our section that are doing the mask during competition?
I think there's a lot of wait and see. The athletic director at Bishop Canavan in the WIPIAL did a survey about masks and he got a return of 149 schools. He got a return of 66, about 30%, 30%, which is good for a survey, but they're still very divided. It's like 51% is going to say their kids are wearing masks. And then, there's all these different variations. What I heard mostly today in the MAC meeting, and also the MAC principals are sharing through. So Janice is getting information as well that we're tag teaming. Most schools that are requiring masks for their own team are not requiring masks for the visiting team. So, I kind of go back and forth on whether we need to have everyone wear masks while we play. I think, where I'm kind of landing is it would be easier if everyone just wears a mask and then we don't have to have mask police. And, a lot of the college teams, the local college teams that I know their athletic training staff there, they are wearing masks in practice. I haven't seen that they've had all that many games yet and whether or not they're masking in their games.
Okay. So the WIPIAL is going to go ahead and they're going to be in a meeting tomorrow. And in your opinion, Addie, are they just reaffirming what the PIAA has already said? Or is it something where they may reach shot and make another decision on their own.
No, I don't think so. I think I just was reading a tweet from Mike White, and he was saying that basically there was an interview of Mr. Lombardi, who's the chair of the PIAA or the executive director of the PIAA, and he basically said, you know, we're not making a change right now. It's up to the governor's office. If I would just put it in a nutshell, and so there's some feeling out there right now in the ether that the governor might make a change about capacity and or activities inside that may take away the option to even do anything. Like, for example, they may say you can't go bowling, and then, you know, our bowling team would be out of luck. And so your guess is as good as mine right now on overall what could happen, but right now WIP has been and will probably carry the PIAA line. Did I answer your question?
It did. You did.
Yes.
Now
Okay.
there's supposed to be a meeting or a press conference tomorrow that's supposed to lay out some new guidelines.
Yes. You know, and that might be complicated by the fact that Governor Wolf just became positive. I would imagine Dr. Levine should still be able to do press
Right.
conferences for the state, for the Commonwealth. Yes.
Addie,
Yes, ma'am.
so one of the things I think that's on a lot of people's minds are seniors, especially those who are being scouted and recruited
Sure.
by Division I or Division II, where they would be scholarship eligible.
Sure.
And so I just wonder, has the conversation started about what the alternatives are if there's no season, for example, girls basketball,
Yeah.
or boys, you know, whatever it is, like what are some of the options, or what are some of the things that can be done to make sure that some of these children still have a chance to be able to get those scholarships?
Right. I think the one thing we need to understand too, as part of the recruiting process in general, is that AAU or private basketball leagues that did happen most of the summer are a part of the recruiting process as well. College coaches actually do most of their off-campus recruiting in the month of June. And so, you know, they probably have opportunities to be seen then. We do have game film from last year, which is very available to everyone. You know, we're making sure that any conversations that come to us, we give them all the information that we have. I've got coaches contacting me for some of our, you know, fall sport athletes, and we're making sure that we line all that kind of thing up. You know, that's kind of what we can do right now is we are where we are, but we provide all the information that we have. You know, we made sure we packaged, for example, all our football film so that it could be used by folks. You know, coaches are pretty savvy. It's a complicated, college coaches are pretty savvy. It's a complicated time for them as well. As finances change at the intercollegiate level, though, scholarship offers, you know, may become more tenuous anyway. I've heard of a couple of schools pulling back their offers because of the financial situations of the institutions that they might go to. So the whole landscape is complicated right now, but we will do everything we can to assist our student athletes.
Okay, great.
Did I
Thank
answer your
you.
question?
Yes, yeah, and I just would hope we would take a proactive stance on this to do whatever we can.
Yeah, we are.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Patty, Denise Manganello, I have a question about
Sure.
academic eligibility. Are we
Mhm.
currently still pulling that?
Yes.
And where are our student athletes? Because a lot of being eligible is driven by being on the team and being a participant on the team. And I worry more about the safety and security of mental health of our
Mhm.
student athletes and our
Right.
students, because that's also a huge impact as well as COVID. But
Yep.
where do we see an increase of students that would be ineligible because of learning right now?
Yeah, so I don't think we've seen an increase. Ms. Zupsik and I are still pulling eligibility. We still work through them and share them with coaches. I don't think we see sorry, my dog's going a little whack over here. I don't think we see an increase in student athletes who are in trouble. I think that we see a lot of students that have had challenges in the past, and we've done a lot of different things to support them. I think they are struggling still, and we're working with the coaches to try to address it. Because in the fall, they had more access to them than I did, because they would see them at practice and they weren't necessarily, they might have been remote at school and that type of thing. So I think we were pretty successful in the fall in dealing with some kids. I think we have some kids that frankly struggle, and their struggles are somewhat continuing, but there is not an increase.
Mrs. Lucatoro, I have a question. Mary Jo Kehoe here.
Hi, Mary Jo.
You had mentioned that there were a couple schools that were delaying the start of their season.
Yes.
What exactly would that look like?
Well, in essence, we are as well. We were scheduled to play games beginning the first games you could play. I think this Friday, we would be scheduled to play. We were scheduled to play girls basketball and boys basketball this weekend, and we had some wrestling dates. What I've done with our opponents in the window of time between the 11th Friday and the 28th of December, which is when, I projected that we could first play, we've contacted all those opponents and said we will postpone. We've canceled some middle school games because we just don't have the ability to move middle school maybe necessarily forward in January, February, because their schedule's so compressed and they might already have 3 games in a week already. So adding another game to a week is just not possible. But what we've done with our opponents is just say, we're out, we're not practicing right now, we cannot play. And this was the soonest we could play. And everybody's been pretty patient. Our opponents have been patient with us. And, and once, if a decision is made to return, then I get on the phone and we fix it. So we had 2 weekends of section play for boys and girls basketball that have been moved forward. So we would be basically 2 games behind for the boys and the girls that we'd move forward. The one thing the PIAA is allowing us to do, they're allowing us to play later. And so they made that official today. So we have more room to be able to play. The season has not been condensed or compressed like the WIPIAL did with the fall. If you remember, the WIPIAL did that and compressed that for the fall.
So my last question would be, what is the absolute end date to reschedule a game for?
Good question.
That's a great question. Yeah. It's simply how many games we could play in a week. So it's looking at my coach and saying, we usually play 2 games a week. The women usually play, the girls usually play Monday, Thursday, and the boys usually play Tuesday, Friday. And we had some Saturday games play. What you have to do is you have to preference all your WIPIAL section games. So at that point, we'd lose most of our non-section games. And we did that in the fall. That was something that we did in the fall. We lost most of our non-section competitions. So you basically come back and play your section schedule. And we did that in soccer, for example. And so soccer, there were weeks we played 3 games in a week. So that's what we'd be looking to do. We'd be looking at our opponents and saying, okay, when can we plug stuff in? I think the girls had a couple open days, so we'd aim for those. And the boys had 1 open date to aim for. So it's just a lot of conversation with folks. And this is the most cooperative set of people I've worked with in my career. So we'll get it done.
Addie, and how long have they extended the season then?
Well,
What's the dates
they
there?
had, yeah. So I saw the date of March 27th. So basically what that allows you to do is if you would not be active in the WIPIAL playoffs, then you could move more games in there just so you get more of a complete season. So and the other thing they've done is they've restructured the PIAA tournament, and they're only going to take the section champions. So that's going to change, and they might They haven't yet, but they may adjust the start dates of the tournament to maybe give us another week. Does that make sense?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely, thank you.
And Addie, what would be our, as the board, drop dead date to get our kids into that competition? So with the 15-day practice beforehand to fit all these games in, what is that drop dead date for us?
You know, I would say that, yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. What honestly, what I had been looking at is, okay, you know, my first available practice day would be 10. So I was saying December 28th. I would say that we'd have to be on the court. I'd have to look at a calendar. Oh, don't have one in front of me, sorry. Probably, I think Monday is the 4th, right, of January. So I would say we'd have to be ready to play by the following Monday. And then you could go backwards from there. So the 4 + 7 is 11. So around December, after Christmas,
We'd have to vote at the next meeting, I feel.
pretty much.
So
yeah.
that's what I was going to bring
Yeah, I
up
mean-
to
I
Mr.
mean-
Campbell was,
Yeah.
you know, maybe we could gather a little more information and vote on this next week. If the rest of the board thinks that's a fair trade-off to say, you know, maybe we can gather some more information and then add it next week to the agenda.
I mean, I think that, I mean, we have to at the end, but I mean, at the latest, we have to vote next week. There's, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's
Does
one of those
anybody have
things that
an,
we have to get in.
does
Well, I think
anybody
next
have an
week-
objection to looking at next week and
No,
try to
because-
gather as much information as we can this week to be prepared for voting for next week?
Yeah, next week should be fine because whatever the governor's gonna do for the next 3 or 4 weeks, we
Right.
should know by then.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I'll continue to collect as much information as I can. You know,
Thank you.
we'll get you the masking thing. I think that'll, excuse me, I think that'll continue to evolve. So we'll get that for you.
And the press conference tomorrow will give us more information as well,
Mm.
correct?
Correct.
Right.
So I think that is a very, very important piece of information that we need.
And I believe there are some other board meetings this week as well. So maybe we may gather some more feedback from some other areas too. All right, if everybody's good with that, then any other questions athletics wise from any of the other board members before we move forward? Addie, thank you for all of the wealth of information there. Much appreciated. Okay, we'll move forward to public relations.
Patty, thank you.
Mr. Metz,
Nothing at this time.
thank you. Steering rules, Mrs. Kehoe.
Okay, we have item number 1, which is policy 247, hazing. All of these will be first readings and they are updates. It is to maintain a safe, positive environment for students and staff that is free from hazing. Does anyone have any questions on that? Item number 2 is policy 249, bullying/cyberbullying. It is to provide a safe, positive learning environment for district students. Are there any questions? Item number 3, policy 318, attendance and tardiness, is to establish processes for staff to report unexpected absences, which shall be addressed in accordance with board policy and an applicable individual contract, collective agreement, or board resolution. Is there any questions on that one? Item number 4 is policy 332, working periods. It is to make modifications to the school calendar and the school schedule as necessary to meet the instructional and health and safety needs of students and staff. Questions? Item number 5, policy 335, family and medical leave, is to provide eligible administrative, professional, and supportive employees with unpaid leave of absences in accordance with the Family and Medical Leave Act. Are there any questions? Item number 6 is policy 907, school visitors. It is to ensure order in the schools and protect students and employees. Does anybody have any questions on those? That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you, Mrs. Kehoe. Moving forward to legislative, Ms. Young.
Nothing to discuss at this time.
Thank you. Salary schedule and labor relations, Mrs. Curtis.
Nothing to discuss at this time.
Thank you. Can I have the sunshine law, please, June?
Board of School Directors held an executive session on Wednesday, December 9th to discuss personnel matters and matters subject to attorney-client privilege and other confidentiality laws.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you for attending this evening. Have
Thank
a
you.
great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.